Hello, everybody. Welcome back once again to On the Couch with David and Travis.
And this was episode 22, Don't Be. Now, coming off last week, we had that big, great episode where we looked into all the secondary characters. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing now is this week's section is basically the last of the episodes. Next week, we have the two endings. Neither of them really count as episodes. I don't think so. But what they do is great with these last three is after giving us sort of a grander perspective, a flashback on those secondary, more background ones, it takes these last three. We do an Asuka episode, a Rei episode, and a Shinji episode.
Okay.
And this was the Asuka episode, and it is sad.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's an
sad. This is a really, I think it's a really good episode, but it's also just really depressing.
It's really sad.
The visuals are absolutely incredible, especially in the sort of flashback mind sequences. But even not so, like when the light is shining on the Eva, that looks like a beautiful rainbow prism. Yeah. The lance is beautifully designed. The animations when it's like retching in pain are all great. Yeah. And there's some really great dialogue and character moments in this one too. What did you think overall?
I think talking just generally, the thing I thought of was the idea of psychological warfare. Because the Eva is being, and Asuka herself is being attacked by the angel, not physically, but mentally. And especially in today's world, with like everything in the news right now, we're not talking about physical war anymore, we're talking about informational and psychological warfare, which I think is interesting, and it's a different way of taking down your enemies, which I think is interesting. Just looking at it from like not the Asuka character perspective, but just like a general overall, like the mind is the ultimate battleground.
Well, it's almost even more terrifying because death is tangible.
Yeah.
You can physically see someone who's dead or see physical pain. Mental warfare, if you will, or mental damage is hard to equate.
Oh my god. Well, yeah, and it's hard too because physically, your mind is made up of your brain and your neural connections. So if somebody can somehow rewire your brain without you willing it, like that is the scariest thing ever. Is somebody is basically taking over your entire body and how your system works by altering your physical brain, which is really, really scary.
They keep calling it like invading her mind, and I think that wording is very intentional.
Well, and that's like the same thing with the lobotomy and like BoJack Horseman, right? It's like somebody outside of your body is deciding how you're going to think and exist from now on. Which is like if you like cut off a leg or you get stabbed, that's a physical pain, and that can lead to emotional pain, obviously. But like the idea of somebody like attacking just your brain and adjusting how you think and act and behave is the scariest thing ever.
Yeah. And it's humans personified pretty well in this episode.
Well, and we want to be autonomous creatures who, our own free will, and this is basically the exact opposite of that, which is frightening.
And as far as tragic backstories go, this is a rough one because they could have just gone with the she didn't like her mom. The mom killed herself angle, which is already very depressing and emotional. Yeah. But they have that extra layer of what they're hinting at, I believe, is that the mom is in some sort of capacity mentally broken, insane, or something like that, and treats the doll as her child versus her actual child.
Yes. Which you see, which is, like a real thing, like especially with patients with dementia, that occurs where they kind of fixate on a childlike object, especially a doll.
But it works on that other level where it really gives you this extra layer of motivation of why she has so much hatred for Rei. And she calls her out and says, "You are a doll, this, and that." And again, it feels sort of like soapboxing to the audience and again criticizing this sort of culture thing. But I like that Rei stands up for herself here. And, the I am not a doll thing is sort of a big character moment for me, I think.
But also, she kind of is.
Well, that's the thing, is that under her own control, though, we don't even really know what Rei is at this point. We have very little idea if she even has free will.
Yeah.
But it adds that extra layer of motivation of why the competition between them is so important and why it breaks her down so much. And it even sort of gives us a good reason why she's sort of this, like, just looking at that video we had of tsundere character trait, is because It sort of shows her as a kid, her entire life is projecting this I don't need people's help, I don't need your sympathy, I don't need to cry thing.
Mm-hmm. Which is the exact opposite of the truth.
Yes. But that's great because that's another way this show sort of takes these tropes and cliches and examines them under a more thorough lens.
And humanizes them.
Yes. And I think that's wonderful that it does that.
Yeah. And that's something I think all of us go through at some point in our lives of, like, I don't need other people. Not to that extent, obviously, but it's, like, something that's much more relatable than just, like, oh, yeah, this cute girl. You know, like, the trope of tsundere. Like, a lot of it is just like, oh, is this emotionally damaged girl? Isn't that sad? Let's fix her. And, like, this is taking the exact opposite approach of how does this happen?
And there were some great technical things, just small touches in this episode, too. You pointed this out. When they had the scene in Masato's apartment, you know, if this was 10 episodes earlier, would have been, oh, Masato's theme, she's chugging the beer, oh, this is fun, but it clearly wasn't. It was somber music, it was a somber tone.
Yeah.
I think that was a great way of just showing how things have changed so much between these characters. Each of them has, like, a huge thing that's going on with their life right now.
Yeah.
So they can't really interact with each other. I don't really know, I think it adds a nice layer of authenticity, just how well Asuka's character speaks German. Like when you hear her listen.
Oh, yeah. And that was like, clear German.
Yeah.
As someone who took German 4 in high school. No, but like, that was actually German. Like, it wasn't gibberish.
This is something I'm sort of stuck on, though, with the episode, is almost 8 minutes, a huge chunk of this episode, Hallelujah. Is it Handel?
Yeah.
I'm just sort of conflicted. I'm undecided how I feel about that. Because I get it. It fits in good thematically because it's angels. We want sort of like an angelic choir. So I'm thinking, what's more that than Hallelujah? But
you know what's really scary to people who are religious is divine retribution.
Okay.
Is the idea that they are going through their lives believing this religion, and then at the end, once everyone's dead and they go to heaven, there's somebody else who decides for them whether or not they were good enough in life. Which is also really scary for people with religious beliefs and affiliations. So I viewed it as someone who has gone to church and has heard religion firsthand for a long time. I kind of almost felt it was kind of like a, you know, literally an angel from the heavens going to smite the earth, divine retribution kind of thing of, you're a horrible person, and I'm going to show you why you were horrible.
And they had an interesting touch with that, too, because they had a line about being touched by an angel. And usually the idea of being touched by an angel is like an enlightenment, the best thing that can ever happen to you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Asuka being touched by an angel in this episode is almost the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Which is sort of an interesting... There is sort of commentary on questioning what you're being told in religion. It's obviously not the main focus.
No.
But the elements of it are there. I feel weird about the use of the public domain music here. It feels almost a little distracting to me, but I wonder if that's kind of the point.
I don't know. It's difficult to say, like, exactly, like, well, if they wouldn't have done it, it would have been better. Like, I don't know if that's
I don't know
the
what
case.
else you would put there if they had put... it made the scene better. I can't deny that. It made it a very intense and interesting scene, because it's like these horrible things are happening, but it's like the most cheerful, jubilant music that has ever been written, basically. So there's a dissonance there that's great. It's just the fact that it's such a notable and obvious song feels weird to me. It's
but
like
at the same time, if they want the audience to feel a certain, like, ironic, cognitive dissonance kind of thing, they need to be able to choose a piece of music that's easily recognizable and something that is so dehumanizing in terms of, like, the psychological warfare, that it needs to be something that people can actually grasp onto in the scene. I think it couldn't just be an orchestral
I think it's
piece.
totally a subjective thing. I just get a little turned off, like, when I see something and they do, like, Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy or something like that. It just kind of takes me out of it, because it's like, oh, I've seen this a million billion times.
That's the problem with us as viewers having consumed so much popular cultural texts that we've come to associate using free and public domain music as something that's lazy.
Yeah,
and we associate with that
and it doesn't
entirely
have to be that
and
way.
Justifiably, because most things that do use it as horrible.
Or like In the Hall of the Mountain King or something like that. It's like, ugh. God, though, that, I don't know if we have the broadcast version that we're watching, but that director's cut scene is horrifying.
Oh my gosh, it's scary. It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Just, like, psychologically, ooh.
And, God, the way it's got... Because it's not just like the other ones where you have the text, like you have the Nine Todd flashing on the scene. It's not just like the other scenes where they do that, because they have this warped font and inverted colors and the static white noise.
And like the puncture, like every time she gets emotionally damaged, it's like it sounds like somebody's like puncturing glass with a bullet. It's so visceral.
The voice acting is really,
oh my
really
gosh,
talented.
it's so visceral that you feel the mind like exploding, and it's terrifying.
It's a combination of just like the writer, the actor, the editor are all on the exact same page of what this scene has to do and say. Because if any one of those things would have done it like, halfway, it wouldn't have worked out. But there are like, this is what we need to show here.
Well, I feel like, and that's kind of almost an element of good horror, is the idea that it's psychologically, I don't want to say damaging because that's not the right term, but it's psychologically frightening.
Yes.
Like, it is so... It's so intense that you cannot help but feel it in your own, mind.
And they're so creative with the visuals here. Her being naked in a fetal position in, a childhood park, and then it's her younger version talking to her, but it's different colored, and it gets the doll head. Everything is... This series is so creative visually, which is weird, because, again, you go back to the beginning, it was very static in terms of visuals. Things weren't really fluid or changing in the way you would hope to see. But this show is, at this point, always throwing something beautiful, frightening, or interesting to look at.
Yeah. It's good, but it's intense, to say the least.
Very intense.
It's crazy, and yeah, it's just hard to explain unless you see it. But.
It's the kind of thing that we'll do more of summations at the end, but I just feel like a lot of people could watch this and would feel kind of disturbed.
Yeah, it is. I would say if you would see it, you have to emotionally brace yourself.
Oh yeah.
And just be yep, this is something that's going to be emotionally damaging. And then
but that's great.
But that's I
great.
am going to be reflecting on later in bed when I'm trying to go to sleep.
If you think about this, so just the balls to show this in the early 90s in an anime is just so...
Oh! I was going to say this.
Yeah.
Anime and animation in general is the perfect way to show psychological things that are crazy. Because with the physical world, you can only do so much in terms of adjusting it.
And manipulating
it. And especially when recording. But in animation, whether it be a video game or a movie or a TV show or even a graphic novel, there's so much you can do with how you construct a scene that you just can't do with physical actors and and the physical environment, that it makes it a lot easier to be able to represent psychological disturbance.
The real limit with it is really only your own imagination.
Yeah.
I think it works especially well in anime because more so than Western animation, the body proportions are more... The body proportions are more realistic. They look more like real people than, say, Ed, Ed, and Eddie or Hey Arnold or something like that. Or even stuff like BoJack Horseman or Family Guy. So it's animated, so you're sort of limited in sort of the physics and manipulation of the environment, but the people are portrayed realistically enough in the sense that I think you can get that deeper involvement than you could with some... obviously something like Avatar is animated in a sense that, the people strictly, not necessarily, the powers or physics, but the people resemble real people.
Well, I just feel like there's just not there hasn't been a real Americanized or Western animation that's like this.
No.
Where it looks like physical people, and then they're using it psychological.
No.
I think there's certain Western video games that have done something like this where it's that way, but I don't think it's something that's strictly anime. That it's only possible that anime.
No, I'm not saying I just think it works better stylistically with how just the characters are drawn.
Yeah, I think the big reason for that is that, at least for me, I can't think of a single Western animation.
When you think of Western
TV show like this,
the tackle psychological thing, like you always say, BoJack Horseman sort of goes for that deeper level, but that's really, really new. That's 20 years after this came out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's not necessarily the art... the art style does do part of it, but I think it's possible for an American animation to be able to do something like this.
Okay, well, we're going to move on. I'm excited to watch the next one. I don't know what's called. Episode 23 coming up.